it took so much hatred and pain off of my heart that I was never the same. I was never the same after that. And like, I'd go to work and put on the uniform and just be like, oh goodness, like like this, like this does not feel, this is not me anymore.
Welcome to the Do You Feel Heard podcast, a production of Helping the Herd. Helping the Herd is committed to empowering individuals to liberate themselves from the patterns that keep them from creating their ideal life. If you like this podcast, visit helpingtheherd.com to find resources and personalized coaching to empower you to be your best self. Good morning, gentlemen. Glad to see you both here. Derrick, good morning. And we have with us today Jerod. Jerod, how are you?
Outstanding. How are you guys? Grand risings to you.
Doing well, Derrick?
Fantastic. It's a beautiful morning. The sun is shining, and I'm here with you guys.
Yeah, what more could we ask for? So, Jerod, a little bit about Jerod. I want to give him an opportunity to kind of let people know about him and how he found himself where he is and doing this really powerful work that he's doing. Take it away, Jerod.
Hello, Grand Risings. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast, guys. Derrick, and I deeply appreciate it. So my name is Jarod Napier. I'm the owner operator of Rising Ridge, the 508A1C faith-based organization out in just north of Tulsa in a place called Sperry, about 20 minutes from downtown. I'm a retired military veteran, did 20 years in the United States Navy, and deeply struggled in certain points of my life and career for a plethora of reasons. But, particularly the last 4 years of my career, I had some real trouble in finding some stable ground and some real help within the military health organization to allow me to be well. It's a very algorithmic type of organization that says you have this problem, we're going to treat this symptom. And you have this problem, we're going to treat this symptom. And it's really whatever you have to do in the moment to be ready to go out the door. I was lucky enough to do 6 combat deployments. I did 3 deployments to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, and a couple into certain parts of the continent of Africa. And no matter what, not deploying was never an option. Mm-hmm. So I had to do what I had to do, to include blatantly ignore my mental and physical health to be ready to go out the door. And there's a badge of honor that you wear during that time. Like, yeah, I'm always ready to go out the door. Even though you might be a full-blown alcoholic who hasn't touched REM sleep in 4 months. And no matter what it was, you always were what others needed you to be. And that comes with a cost. Those years of neglect to yourself finally caught up with me. And I was blessed enough to find alternative modalities. I was lucky enough to find spirit. I was lucky enough to find a plethora of truly high vibration people that I could steep with, and to allow my authenticity and to allow my vulnerability to really seep out and leak all over a sacred container that I was in. And that is where I truly shifted my life. And that is where I truly was able to start to kind of systematically come off of these medications that had kind of been wildly encouraged during my entire time in the military. And, whenever you step into that work, it's powerful. And, if you've known me for any, even if we've met, you can probably get the sense that anything that I do, I go full throttle and I'm all in. So when I felt the power of God in my heart, and I felt spirit, and I felt the ability to, truly be of service, I went all in. And we opened Rising Ridge, we moved from Texas, found our ranch in Oklahoma, and then from there, Spirit just kept showing up and following my curiosity and following what I believe is my role on this earth now, and that is to be of highest service to people that want to help themselves.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing, man. So glad to have you on here as well. For those who most likely don't know, Jerod and I held space, once before on Rising Ridge, and it was truly a beautiful experience. And the veterans who were there for that offering, from my perspective and the feedback that I got from them later, it was greatly impactful. And so I'm just so glad that you're doing what you're doing in service to God, to humanity, to your brothers. And yeah, thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jerod.
Thank you.
Yeah. You said a few words that really caught me there. You talked about being tough, and you talked about what it was like to not have the option of not deploying, to not. We all know what it's like to have a situation where you have to show up, and how strenuous that can be. So you talked about tough, and you also talked about vulnerable and being able to be vulnerable. And my question to you is, can you be both tough and vulnerable? Or are those not compatible in any ways?
I think that's an outstanding question. My answer is absolutely. And truly being tough, I think you need to be tough. I think being tough mentally and being tough physically, it matters, particularly as men, because if it all unravels and we need to, like, we're the ones that are going to be protecting the children and protecting the women and swinging the swords and creating truly safe spaces. And sometimes that means you have to ignore what you're feeling. You have to ignore what you're, going through physically, because truly be what you need to be for others at the time. However, when you are duped and lied to within a military organization of what it is that you need to be of highest service, that can get pretty blurred pretty quick. But, true masculinity comes with the space to be both. Sometimes you need to swing a sword and do what needs to be done. But there's also times when you need to steep in softness and be wildly vulnerable to those who care about you and those who are concerned for you, and teach our children and teach our children's children that being soft and being vulnerable does not mean that you're not tough. It's not, being one doesn't make you less of the other. Just because you're capable of doing these types of things that some may view as horrific doesn't mean that you can't be soft, loving, and nurturing. Like, you can be both. And not to go off on too much of a tangent, and please reel me in at any time.
Go off. Go off.
Because I do love that. I never shy away from a microphone, and I will talk. Yeah. But when I was really starting to navigate this experience of, well, what are you? Like, because I'm a gunfighter, I'm a combat medic, I am a protector, I am all these things. And when I was really starting to unravel and heal, I was in Mexico. I traveled to Mexico to graduate my Death Doula Academy. And, there we sat with a amphibian medicine by the Neo-DMT. And my intention before that ceremony was, I asked myself, I was really struggling with the duality of it all. Like, okay, are you a protector? Are you this, or are you this light and love? And that was my intention. I said, look, show me what this is. And that medicine showed me clear as a bell. You know, I remember standing there looking at this mountain, and like I was breathing with this mountain, and the download that I got and what I saw, what I felt, what I was told was that you are everything. You are light. You are love. You are a nurturing space. You can create these spaces for people to truly feel safe at a cellular level. But you're also a sword swinger. You know, you have the capacity to, you know, kidnap somebody, throw them in the trunk for a few days and kill people if you need to. But you're also, you know, in the same day, you can swing back into the light and love space. Like I said, being one doesn't make you less of the other, you know, and the true duality of it all, the true capacity of a human being to be what you are and in your authenticity, right? Like the highest vibration ever recorded in a human being in a Faraday cage was authenticity, not love, not gratitude, but being what you are, what your heart is at a cellular level. And I am blessed, like, to be able to do both. I've done both, and I will, you know, hopefully not continue to do, you know, the violent things that I've done in my life, but, you know, I had a capacity for it all. And I, when I was torn about what that is, I'm like, oh, you're not being authentic. And then 5-MeO was like, no, you're being radically authentic. And I was like, oh, well, thank you. I get it now.
Wow, thank you. What I heard you say there was really that, you know, even though they do seem like a duality, strength and vulnerability, they're really interdependent. And it takes some amount of strength to be vulnerable, whether that's the strength of others, community, your set and setting, like I'm guessing, which we'll get into in these retreat spaces and how you cultivate those containers there. But also within ourselves, you know, if you're going to open up and be vulnerable, you have to trust yourself to come back to be ready to take care of yourself or to be taken care of soon after. And that means they're needed for each other. And, you know, you talked a lot about authenticity, and I think of that as truth. Truth. And one of my favorite quotes is, all truth is paradox. All truth is paradox. And I could really see that with this seeming paradox of strength and vulnerability, but it really does seem to go together hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll jump in with the next question then if you're complete over there, Derrick. You mentioned getting trained as a death doula, and I'm curious how that experience maybe applies to your experiences while in service with death and your relationship with it, and if there was any maybe, I don't know, revelations or things that were, you know, became clear to you when you did that work, when you kind of looked back at your experiences with it before.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Yeah, so I'm probably not gonna be able to get through this without crying, but
Well, it's a safe place to do that, brother. You can go ahead and cry if you need
well, I
to.
appreciate that. Dude, I watched this podcast. It was just Jarod Napier crying for 9 minutes. Like, what the?
Within a 5-minute span, Jerod went from talking about kidnapping people to weeping.
Yeah.
We'll add some cool music in post. It'll look awesome. Don't worry. You're going to look great while you're doing it.
It will fade in.
You know, so I was towards the end of my career, and I was looking at what I was going to do next in life. And like, I had this idea. I was going to be a real estate mogul. I had owned, I owned at the time, I think four or five properties, and that's what I was going to do. I was just going to, I had a good mentor, and I was going to go all in and be a real estate mogul, be a millionaire. And so I bought this huge farmhouse that was like a complete gut in South Texas. It's like a 6-bedroom, 4-bath on 4-acre farmhouse. And got in way over my head, tried to do all this stuff by myself, and like full throttle, you know, like, oh, I can do this. So like I bought this house. And went while I was redoing that house, I went to look at another house, and I went in there, and it was like, it just looked weird, and there was like dividers in the rooms and the walls, and I was like, what the hell is this house? Like, what were they doing with it? And the realtor was like, oh, it was a hospice house. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I called my friend who had just opened a hospice business, and I said, hey, what do you think about this? And she's like, I could put 8 to 10 people in that home, you know, a month after you close, and it could generate $15,000-$20,000, you know, clearing that a month. And I was like, outstanding. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to own a hospice house. So I made an offer on that house. Somebody bought it cash. It didn't work out. But then that big farmhouse, and I did some research, and I found out that in that area, there were a lot of old cowboys in that county, you know, because you do your research and you're like, you know, this is between the ages of 60 and 80, this much of the population percentage is in that area. And I looked in the area, and there wasn't a hospice house, and it was like a nice place. And I was like, I'm going to open a hospice house for cowboys, their wives and their farmhands. And it's going to be super special. And it's not going to be like these hospice homes, end of life facilities that you go to anywhere else. It's going to be real. It's, you know, they can do whatever they want. They can drink whiskey. They can smoke cigars. They can eat steaks. I don't, you know, like, we're going to do it big. And I went all in, dude. That was the goal, and I started to make it happen. And so I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to become a death doula. You know, a death doula is someone who accompanies the dying and their families, and is truly there to be a pillar of support, not only for the person dying, transitioning them into their next existence of life, but also for their families. And I said, I'm going to learn the ins and outs of this at an emotional, physical, spiritual level, and I'm going to go all in. Well, little did I know that container of 10 women and me was going to change my life forever. So started getting this container, you know, a lot of my own work that I hadn't really done at that point, of deep feelings of inadequacy, you know, feelings of not belonging, feelings of like, this is what you do. Like, you are a warrior on this earth, and this is how you're going to be successful. Once I kind of got into that space, they made me feel safe at a cellular level. And we'll talk more about that later. But when I got into that container, it really was healing for me. It was the first time that I felt truly safe, seen, and valued. And that started to unlock a lot of things for me. So let me just kind of reel myself in for a moment. Going back to your question. When I started to line myself up with that work, and I started to align myself, a lot started to come up for me in regards to death. You know, particularly I spent, 4 combat deployments, very intimate with. My only goal was to, locate, close with, and destroy the enemy with fire and maneuver. And that's to kill people. That's what I trained to do. That was the victory on the battlefield, was to, get these battle damage assessments and how many people we successfully killed in a gunfight, or how many people we successfully killed, dropping bombs on them, talking to people on, up in these planes, dropping these bombs. And it's so strange. Think about now, we used to cheer and hug each other for killing these people. And it was so easy to be brainwashed and demonize these human beings. And it was so easy to be brainwashed when you live that life, of death. But also on the other end of that spectrum, like, my job as a corpsman and as a combat medic was to keep my guys alive, and I remember the first time that I put my hand on a Marine that had no pulse. And I just remember, like, this feeling. It's like true feeling of helplessness. Like, there was no coming back from that. I couldn't stop the bleeding. I couldn't do this. I couldn't bring him back to life. They're gone forever. And in that moment, it's the opposite of the celebration of someone else's death. It's the worst. It's not a celebration. It is, oh my God, like, this happened. Somebody's mother, father, somebody's wife, husband is going to be getting this call. 3 distinct knocks on the door, opening the door to, 2 or 3 men in their dark uniforms, letting them know that this individual is not coming home. When I started to do this death doula work, I saw death as sacred, truly sacred. The moments, the months, the years leading up to the death are sacred. The process that the individuals go through while they're dying, the brainwave changes, the spiritual changes, the cellular changes of someone dying is sacred, to be witnessed in that space. And I had taken that from other individuals, and they didn't get any proper burial. There's probably young men, well, now adults, that never saw their father again. No idea how he died. All they know is that their dad never came home. All their mom's able to tell them is that your father never came home. I robbed not only that individual of him steeping those last moments with his family, but I've robbed his family of steeping in those final moments with him. And like, it was just like, I'm trying to navigate this space kind of on my own, and I'm just like, holy shit, like, this is heavy, this is deep, this is not like, this is foreign to me. And one of the modules in the course is psychedelics. And well, I could talk about this story for days, but I'll keep it as short as I can. It was going to be like my first real macro dose of medicine, earth medicine. And I was down in Texas, and I got my hands on some high vibration medicine, and I was going to do like 3 grams, right? That was going to be my big macro dose. And I was going to go down to the South House, and there's nobody around that house for probably, almost a mile probably. And I went down there, and I was nervous, and I was turning into this long, windy dirt road. And I was nervous, and it was really when I was trying to trust spirit and follow my curiosity. And I asked spirit, like, out loud, said, spirit, like, please let me know that I'm going to be safe and that nothing bad is going to happen during this journey. And that I have, spirit's blessing and permission to consume this medicine. And the next song, like within seconds, that came on this like random, like lo-fi playlist that I had playing on Spotify was called Take 3. Like that was the name of the song. And it was like, and after that, like I got this kind of energetic feeling on my body. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, okay, I felt confident. Went down there, consumed the medicine, and, walking around for a little bit, playing guitar, playing the drum for a little bit. And, felt good. And so I consumed 2 more grams of medicine. And I wandered out into this field when it was dark, and nothing but a pair of like short shorts, my cowboy hat, and his tarot card that my mentor had pulled for me. And I went out into this field, and I just had an amazing evening. I had what now I kind of realized was like a Kundalini-esque awakening. I was, without getting too graphic, but like I was felt to like deeply massage like my root chakra, and like open my hips and move my hips like in ways that I'd never done before. It was so guided. It was so something that I had never done, chanting loudly for over an hour, like slapping my body, slapping my face, slapping my entire vessel, activating. And I was controlling the wind. I was like, I felt seen more than I'd ever felt seen in my life. And a couple other wildly amazing things happened in that field that is probably for another podcast. But when I came back in, I did a death meditation. I look at the things that I did then while consuming medicine, and I'm like, oh my God, like this dude is out of control. So like I turned off all the lights, like inside and outside, in this big, large, creepy house, and laid in the center of the house with a blindfold on, and ear, like these like over your ear phones, dude. I laid down and I did this death meditation. And one of the things that happens in that death meditation is, like it starts like you have 30 days to live, like you're going to die in 30 days. Who are the people that you want to spend the most time with? And it just really brings you down to like, this is real. What does that look like for you? And at the end, when you die, like, okay, you are dead. You are arriving on the other side of this. Who are some of the people that you see? And who I saw were like men that I'd killed.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did I see them, but I smelled them. Like, I saw them. And like, we embraced. And, like, I held so much pain and hatred. Those people, that I could shut it off. Like, I didn't see them as humans. I didn't see them as people. I saw them as the enemy. And I was going to do everything I could to kill them. And to see them on the other side in that meditation and embrace them. And to feel forgiven. And to feel that they are not the enemy, and they are just beings on this earth, just like me. Just as radical on the other side of the spectrum. Just as radicalized as me. Like, it took so much hatred and pain off of my heart that I was never the same. I was never the same after that. And like, I'd go to work and put on the uniform and just be like, oh, goodness. like this, like this, like this does not feel, this is not me anymore. Like this is not who I am at a cellular level. Um,
Somehow the brainwashing
and
and indoctrination and everything was kind of peeled away because you got deeper than that. Yeah, beautiful.
100%, 100%. Um, death has been one of my biggest teachers next to my children in my life, because until you can truly wrap your arms around death and soak in it, get into the ground with it, smell it, which I had done at a physical level. I had lost people on the battlefield. I had taken lives on the battlefield. And, that, it was totally different. It was just totally different. The ability to slide into both of those compartments was really critical for me to weave death and to weave those experiences of saving life, um, you know, taking life, not saving life, into me as a human on this earth. I don't know if I answered your question, but
It was great either way. Thanks for sharing, Jerod.
Staying weird. I love it. Staying weird, as you should. Man, I think he got there, and I think it was a meandering approach to a very big question. And I mean, you got my brain stirring. But first, Ian, do you want to respond to that? I got a lot of thoughts, but Ian.
No, Derek, go ahead. Take it away.
Oh boy. All right. Well, to start, just of course, thanks for sharing all that. Death is, I mean, you can't live without having to confront death at some point. At least not yet. Probably never. I don't like to speak in absolutes, but death and taxes, are some of those things that are probably going to be around forever.
Well, let's hope not. Let's hope just the death part. Just speaking for myself. But
I'd choose between the two. I choose death.
I know, Jerry, you can relate on that one. Derek, you're on your own island on that calling in taxes forever bullshit. But please continue.
Oh my gosh. Well, for the death part, it's so interesting that you're doing the hospice, that you were confronting hospice, confronting and trying to offer a service for death. I do think, man, life and death, talking about duality, talking about these paradoxes, I mean, you can't live fully unless you're able to hold the reality of death fully. That's what you were confronting in that meditation. That's what you did with these medicines. That's why you took these. It's preparation to live and preparation to die at the same time. They're just this thing, and so often in our culture we ignore, repress, hide, and then we avoid, and we put it off, and we put the necessities of death, and the part that you're bringing here that we really don't talk about as much, of killing, of taking life, in the service of preserving life. And I just love that you were able to bring that together with talking about the joy and the hugging, the celebrating when doing something, taking life. The paradox, again, this ridiculous truth in paradox. But of course you would be. The other side of death is life. You were preserving lives by taking life. And so there was all the joy and all the sorrow. And maybe the sorrow had to be repressed or pushed down so you could keep going, and then eventually found its way out, like you said, through these different awakenings and through these different methods. You really had to walk the path, and it's a long path. But the fact that we will have conflict, we will have war for however long we will, and that we do have to separate these realities is tough to confront, and you really confronted it head on. And I just really appreciate you sharing all this, because especially now, it's 2 days before my mom's death anniversary. I don't know, is there a better word for that? Death anniversary? I feel like we need one. Death day? It's Death Day. Yeah, 4/24/24 she passed in Tulsa at the Claire House. Free shout out to Claire House Hospice Home. They did a fantastic job of shepherding her. So I just visited this past weekend when I was there for Easter. And It's beautiful to be back there, painful. And I just really resonate with what you say about that being a sacred process, dying being a sacred process. Again, living is a sacred process. I think there's just something sacred that we can bring to all parts of life. But when you take it to the extremes, when you see death, you can really start to embrace the sacred a little more and recognize that. And we all feel helpless at death. We all felt. I felt that way when I was seeing my mom suffer and then eventually pass. I know you felt that when you felt that pulse, and in who knows how many other, when you felt the lack of a pulse, and you, who knows how many times. And I think that core struggle with death and with helplessness is what motivates us on to live, to go anyway. And that's where that vulnerability and strength really comes in, whenever you have to confront this reality of death and keep moving on anyway, keep protecting, keep growing, keep multiplying, whatever you're called to do. Yeah. And I guess I want to end this long ramble with just this idea that we keep talking about these dualities, separation, and I just keep thinking of the word yoga, meaning union. And I see that with the work you're doing. And I guess I'll throw that back to you, Jerod, with this, how much of the work you've done feels like this, like reuniting parts of yourself with yourself. When you work with others, are you what's the word, healing these separations? I just see so much separation, the way you had to be able to take life and still preserve it, and you had to, like you said, keep soldiering on no matter what. And I just see all these rigid separations in the mind, in the heart, in the soul, and I wonder how much of the healing work is just letting all these parts flow again, talk to each other, see each other, and really to bring it back to, I want to know about that safe at a cellular level, to feel safe to all exist together again.
Yeah. 100%. I'm a firm believer in that, the bedrock of all healing is safety. And, yeah, you can feel safe carrying your pistol around Tulsa. You can feel safe carrying a knife. You can feel safe, being vigilant and doing this stuff. But when it comes to unraveling and healing and truly zero fear of feeling judged and zero fear of somebody bringing what you're saying outside of a container or sharing with others your slivers of vulnerability, that is where you can stumble around with your spoken word into these compartments of your subconscious. And in those compartments of your subconscious is where these things leak out. And you're able to slowly cultivate and nurture and say these things that maybe you thought or felt, but not ever voiced. And because you've never even voiced them or even put the two and two together on why you're feeling this way or why you behave this way. And when you feel safe and vulnerable and unrushed, you're able to, your spirit will flow where it needs to bring up what needs to be brought up in order for you to live your truth and highest self. And really, that is what we do at Rising Ridge. We don't heal people. It's my wife is a amazing energy worker, and she certainly has some power within her vessel. But, all we do is create containers for people to feel safe at a cellular level so they can perform the behavior, see the things that they need to see, feel the things that they need to feel in order for them to heal themselves with wildly deep-rooted pillar support.
That's so good, man. That's so right. It's like they say with muscles. It's the same thing. They say you can invite a release, but you can never force one. You can't make a muscle release. You can invite it. You can create the conditions so it can, but you can't force relaxation. You can't force it. I just love what you're saying about these containers, especially unrushed. In this day and age, who feels unrushed? I don't know. Ian's pretty grounded over there. I think but I can't tell you the last time I felt unrushed, internally or externally. And that's what these containers are for. I can tell you the last time it was when I was in an intentional container, either of my own design or of a community, and it's a beautiful service. And we call that healing work. I really think that word's so interesting. Doing the work. You talk about shadow work. You talk about doing the inner work. What is the work that is going on when someone is in those containers with you at these? What's the work?
Yeah, great question. And I don't really know. I'm probably going to stumble around this for a bit until maybe I answer it. But like, the work to me is being able to touch, feel, smell, taste your entire existence up until that point. Being molested as a child, being assaulted physically, doing harm to others, all the joys, all the pains, every single thing that had happened to you in your life, looking at it and feeling it and absorbing it and having and feeling the choice to not let it affect you negatively anymore, and being able to feel and realize that this has happened for you, not to you, and that every day you have the choice to arrive as your highest self. Every day you have the choice to step into this world with honesty, integrity, with vigor, with anger, with whatever it is. You have that choice. And, how do we do that? We teach people how to actively listen to each other. We do active listening exercises. And everybody thinks they can actively listen. Everybody thinks they can hold space, particularly men. Men are the worst goddamn active listeners. And but we're conditioned to be fictors. What do you need? What do you need from me? Particularly in the military. Like, you bring a problem to me and you don't have a solution, I'm going to fix it as quickly as possible. So we have literally active listening exercises. I pair the participants up intuitively. I get into a good grounded space and I intuitively pair people up, and we practice 30 minutes for one person, 30 minutes for the other person, connect, hopefully via FaceTime, and shut up. Make your lips touch. Learn how to give verbal, learn how to give nonverbal cues that you are listening. Maybe a every now and then, maybe a yes every now and then, but shut up. And those long, uncomfortable pauses, sit with them. Make it uncomfortable. You don't have to say anything. Allow those feelings of being uncomfortable and you wanting to interject with a joke to take the tension off of what was just said, or you to interject with something else to shift that energy. just a little to make people feel comfortable, don't do any of it. And there's something that's sacred in that space. One, the individual talking, they know what it's like to be witnessed in that space, and they feel it. And two, the person that is witnessing, they know what it's like to witness, because that unlocks them as well. Like, wow, like this is special, and things come up for them that maybe they want to voice, but they don't. So in my opinion, when they do that, that just internalizes that energy and maybe opens up another compartment and maybe lets this compartment leak out into your bloodstream some. And like and it creates a container of safety. So now when they show up, and this is the preparation work before coming to the physical retreat. So then when they show up to the retreat, you know, like, hey, give somebody a hug, like we have connected. And then everybody has one person there that they've connected with. And then, later in the day on Saturday, we do another active listening exercise with a different partner in the physical. And then in the middle of that Saturday, you are knee deep in chakra aligning and energetic flow and releasing, and it just solidifies the container. And when you solidify that container of people feeling safe, seen, and valued and loved and seen, that truly is the medicine. That is what creates that safety. So that is the bedrock of the work. But, we, making people feel safe is the bedrock, and that is a big component of that. Now, the other work, we bleed, the biological piece of this work, I feel like is underutilized. I don't consider myself a biohacker, but for 13 years of my military career, like I was the equivalent of a PA. I had a panel of 3,000 people that I worked in a clinic that I saw. I saw between 22 to 25 patients a day, where, I was given fairly complex patients and I needed to figure it out. And little did I know, I was using my intuition so much that, of course, I didn't realize it was my intuition. I just thought I was God's gift to Navy medicine, with my ego as big as the damn building. Like, oh, I'm so good at this. I could just walk into a room and know that a kid had right lower lobe pneumonia just by looking at him and putting my hands on him for a second. But really, it was all guided by my intuition and my gut feelings. But, Friday we arrive, we do like a scientific biological PowerPoint on what is happening to the body with these medicines, what is happening to the brain. Why in the Saturday morning, why do we sit with Hape, Sananga, Kambo? Why do we do these medicines first thing Saturday morning? What is happening to us in that moment? Why do we do the breath work? Why do we do the connection to earth? Why do we do the ice baths? Why do we do the deep meditations, the intention circles, the sharing circles? My goal is to lengthen the vagal tone. Vagal tone described as the space between that sympathetic fight or flight response and that parasympathetic rest and digest. And how can we take it from here and truly lengthen it farther and farther? So when we feel rubbed and activated, we could take a deep breath and not be so, thrown into a sympathetic fight or flight response. We lengthen that vagal tone throughout the whole day with these different types of modalities. And, all while we're checking in with our people, we're bringing them in slow, methodical intention circles, sharing circles. And by the time the night comes around, unless somebody was, I asked them 2 weeks out from ceremony to stop all caffeine use, stop drinking coffee, stop drinking energy drinks, stop doing these things. So by the time Saturday night comes around for the earth medicine ceremony, they are physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically fatigued. And that's where I want them. That is where I want them, in that space. So when they lay down and we do this kind of yoga nidra-esque body scan theta type of meditation that I do, like, they are rested. They are hopefully we get some different brain waves going. And my goal is, when that hit of medicine introduces itself to that prefrontal cortex, I really want them in that theta state. I feel like there's huge value in that piece of the experience. And the whole time during the day, we're giving them the tools to ground themselves. We're giving them the tools for these deep diaphragmatic breaths. And that's why we use the ice baths. That's why we use the Nanga. We drop these eye drops into their eyes, and everything in your body says, get up and run. Well, guess what, dog? That ain't a fucking option in life all the time. Lay down. Take a deep breath. Ground yourself into this situation, because you're going to need to do that at some point in your life. What, are you going to run around and just be reactive your whole time? You can't do that unless you're in the military, and then it makes you wildly successful.
Yeah, I was going to say, you'd be
for the people
flying through the ranks of the...
Dude, what do you neglect yourself, neglect your people, and not worry about your nervous system? Like, you're doing outstanding. Great job.
Let's put you in charge of people.
But
Wow.
yeah. But that is the work. And then through those modalities and through all of that, like, they do the work on their own. They feel things that they've never felt. They voice things that they've never voiced. And they see others doing it too. So it's just like this crescendo of healing that is naturally occurring. And that is just the space that I create, and every time it's different. Like, I use my intuition hard throughout the day on what the container needs. If they're energetic, then I reel them in. If they're kind of down and mopey after combo, then we get it going a little bit. And I just use my gut, my intuition. I talk to spirit. I snap in, and so that's what healing is. Like, they're doing it on their own and with each other in the space that we create.
Wow.
I don't know if I answered your question or not.
You answered it and then some. Sign me up, man. Jeez. I'm ready to go. Wow. No, I heard it. It was beautiful. I heard all the different levels. The active listening, Ian and I believe so much in that here, and just the power of listening containers, really big thing we do with Helping the Herd. And man, just you're something, man, Jerod. You light me up talking about these. I'm ready to go. I'm so thankful you're providing these.
And I'd be really devaluing the biggest part of this healing experience if I didn't mention the integration of the experience. Because everybody wants change, but nobody wants to fucking change. So it's like, dudes come out and they have their prefrontal cortex blasted open, and they feel God's love in their heart, and they are just like over the moon, right? Well, that's great, but you got to go to work at Best Buy on Tuesday, or you got to go to work at CVS on Wednesday, and you got to deal with that real life, right? So what does that look like? The wildly malleable brain that is after these types of experiences, we need to capitalize on that. We need to capitalize on bringing these neurotransmitters online. We need to capitalize on this neuroplasticity that is vibrant after these experiences. So what does that mean? Well, two things. One, we rest in our parasympathetic, that truly rest and digest. That is where we heal. That is where we heal our nervous system. That is where we heal our brain. But also, you got to rub that brain, and you got to do some things that you don't like to do. You have to rub the parts of that limbic system that, you know, that is wildly malleable all the time, that, doing the things that you don't want to do, getting up early, putting your feet into the grass, slipping into a yoga class at that strange little yoga studio down the way that you've never been to, trying out breath work, connecting to nature, eating, nutrient dense food, uh,
Can I add
doing
one?
these things. What's that?
I'm gonna add one. Choosing a healthier, outlet than screens. If you're bored or if you're needing to occupy your time, or don't reach for it, do the other thing besides what you've been programmed and you've been doing. Like, break those patterns.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I call that value driven behavior. Value driven behavior is how I identify that. And I totally stole that from a woman that, when I did an intensive outpatient like program, she was like, "What does your value driven behavior look like?" And I'm like, "Never heard that term," and I just have been using it ever since, acting like it's my own, but it's not.
Not TM.
Rubbing
Not
that.
TM.
Not TM. We're not TMing that. Sorry, scratch that.
Rubbing that cingulate cortex, part of the limbic system, the part of the brain that grows bigger when we do the things that we don't want to do. And that is a part of the brain that's wildly malleable from the jump. And then after the medicine, it's super malleable. So like, there is this, again, duality of doing the things to deeply cellularly rest with value-driven behavior, but also doing the value-driven behavior and doing the things that you haven't done and maybe don't want to do. And look, I've sat with lots of medicine. I don't always want to get up out of bed at 6 a.m. and put my toes on the earth, pray to God, go through a couple sun salutations and meditate for 5-10 minutes. I don't always want to do that, and I don't do that all the time. So it's clear. But I know that I am my best self when I do. So, and it's tricky, particularly in this veteran space, because a lot of these veterans organizations now, it's starting to like be, they got headhunters out there cold calling veterans. "Hey man, haven't talked to you in a while. I heard you tried to kill yourself and you're a full blown alcoholic. Do you want to go down and sit with Ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT? I know your wife just left you and you work at fucking Best Buy to barely make ends meet. But are you ready for your consciousness and brain to be cracked open with little to no preparation and or integration support?" And dudes are like, "Yes, I'll go. Is it free? Of course I want that." And they don't prepare them at all. They don't integrate them at all. They don't give them the pieces of the puzzle that will make them overall change and heal and successful. They're just doing it because for every person that they get to sign up, they get $400 to $500. And those are the people that, and like their backpedal is, "Oh, it happened the way that it was supposed to." I'm like, you know what? No, it happened because you're a piece of shit and you don't care about these individuals and you are trying to make money off of a suffering community. And if anybody's got a problem with me saying that, come see me in Tulsa, Oklahoma at any time.
Rising Ridge, the address is on the website.
Hey, come on. You can catch me at, local yoga studio too if you need to.
You got beef, come to the yoga studio. We'll throw it down on the mat.
Yeah, I feel you on that short term gain, or at least the perceived short term game of like, yes, I'm suffering. Oh, this is maybe a way out. So yes, I want that. And they're kind of preying on that because there are so many veterans suffering. And I mean, anybody that's ever spent time in a VA hospital understands where a large amount of the root of that suffering comes from. They're poorly cared for. Unless you are a squeaky wheel, making sure everybody and their mother knows that there's something the matter and that you need help. No one is really, no one's looking for that. No one cares. I've personally dealt with a whole mess load of that experience with the VA hospital specifically. And I've lived in like 5 different states, and every one of them the same situation. So it's not just the one hospital. It's the system itself is desperately in need of. Yeah.
It's we look at the government, that in my opinion is a big piece of shit from the top of its head to the bottom of its feet. And we look and veterans are like, yeah, the government this, government that. But you are looking at a government entity to take care of you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's who you're putting your trust in? Like, it's an extension of the worthless government, and you expect them to care for you and to put the pieces in place to help you and heal you?
Right, the entity that broke you in the first place, the entity that
Yeah.
exploited you and wanted to use you for nefarious, deeds, and now you're going to
Over
ask
and
them to
over
heal
again.
you and
Yeah.
help you.
Yeah.
And
They
even
don't
just
care about
medicine
you.
outside of that. Well, even just medicine outside of that. I am a PA. It's funny that I can't believe you basically were like, man, that your clinic situation having 3,000 patients. Geez, that sounds crazy, man. So, I've worked in primary care for a while. I worked with government organizations, health departments mostly, and that. But there's a issue with the whole system that doesn't even, I'm being part of it, being in it, seeing such wonderful people who are out there just putting their lives on the line, burning out to serve. I know there's so many good people, and the system still produces externalities and outcomes that I'm just ashamed of and just disgusted with. And there's a lot of reasons for that we don't need to get into. And I think pharmaceuticals, regulations, safety, cover your ass, time, especially profit. There's so many reasons why, but that's why people are looking for alternatives. I'm so glad that you're doing Rising Ridge. I'm so glad that people have that outlet where they can get something different than what's getting shoved down their throat. I'm part of a similar endeavor. It's called Monarch Neurosciences, and we've worked mainly with veterans, actually. It's really who, and it's a similar, using neuroplastic agents, sometimes psychedelics, but using a retreat setting, a ton of preparation, to your point, a ton, weeks of preparation, weeks of integration, not just slapping someone with, ketamine or something and go back to Target, go back to CVS. Because I've absolutely seen those harms, especially in the ketamine therapy space. In that space, I've seen that firsthand, and ridiculous. And that's what's missing, the time, the intention, and the space for this natural healing that you put so much, and why it's called work. I just love the way you put it, the way, to feel, touch, taste, all these things you don't want to. And then, you were talking about integration the whole time, even though you circled back, and, I'd be remiss to not talk about integration. The whole thing, I felt like, was that concept of union, of integration. You're saying, you have to accept, feel, absorb. These words you used were just so powerful. All the things that have happened to you, that you've done, that you are, and that's work. If anyone, when you could look at a screen, when you could, do any other thing other than that, that's the best definition I've ever heard of work, man. I really appreciate that, and like what these spaces are.
Thank you for saying that. That's a very big compliment. Thank you very much for saying that. I appreciate that deeply.
Yeah, I want to add something to that too. Earlier you were talking about active listening, and for a little bit I was like, I was a little bit confused as to how it would technically be classified as active listening the way you were describing it, and perhaps there are other people listening that were like in the same place of sit there and keep your mouth shut. Like, what's active about that? How is that active listening, just doing nothing? But where I made that connection was when you called me out too, which was perfect, not knowing it, but you did. When you were in that very deeply emotional space and sharing, just vulnerable, sharing about your experience in the military, your experience with death, and there was just like a long pause of you sitting with those feelings, my knee-jerk reaction was to be like, and there's our next recruitment video, folks. Join the military because you'll get to have this fucked up experience. But I was like, no, shut up, dude. Like, let's just let the man feel what he's feeling. We don't need to break it. We don't need to ease the tension or shy away from those real feelings. And that's the part that's active. Actively choosing not to go into that thing. Actively not interrupting because of how someone else is feeling, or you're afraid of feeling that yourself, or you don't want them to feel that way, or whatever it is. All of it ultimately avoiding that moment that's happening and trying to get away from that moment. That's the part that's active. That's what makes it active listening. So I just wanted to share that.
Snaps to that. That's like not choosing is still a choice, right? Not acting is still an action. That's really good. Yeah. What I heard when you were talking about the listening was really about presence, and you talked about nonverbal cues and things you can do to make sure someone knows you're with them. Ian and I talk a lot about reflections and reflective listening so that someone really knows that you heard and processed and then can reflect back to them. But you can get it just from that presence of really being present with someone. We have that sonar, that intuition from when someone's really listening.
100%. And we feel it, and our heart frequency feels it. And our heart that is touching every morsel of blood lets that feeling go in through our entire body. Our brain is over and over again. That is special. Absolutely. We don't talk about that anymore. I went to a psychedelic symposium this past weekend in Tulsa, and man, it was a breath of fresh air to really connect with some folks that are cut from a similar cloth of preparation, integration, intention, all of these things that are deeply rooted into our practice at Rising Ridge. But one of the things that a woman said was an acronym, WAIT. And it was, why am I talking?
I love that.
Why am I talking? And it was it was in regards to holding space and actively listening to, like, why am I talking? And boy, I wrote that down probably 76 times and highlighted it because I love to talk. I can get on my high horse and I can jabber on, but we have a women's retreat coming up in a few weeks. We have our first preparation call this evening. And that's something that I plan on bringing into this space is, why am I talking? Like, unless I have something wildly valuable to share, I am not going to try to fill space with words. I'm going to try to strike while the iron's hot and say, it's going to be a practice for me, because I find that sometimes when I do talk, like, my pattern of thought can go into other places that are valuable, but sometimes they can go into places that aren't as valuable. And I'm just sitting there trying to find the words to reel it back in so it seems valuable. And I'm like, I've been talking for 6 minutes now, and I just felt like I kind of wasted everybody's time, So why am I talking? I like that.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful question to ask yourself, and I think that's a great place to kind of stop and leave people with that thought. Why am I talking? If you are saying something, what's your intention for saying it? And maybe go as deep as you can. If you're being critical of something, well, why are you being critical? Is it helpful in some way? Are you being critical for a positive or for a negative? Or, if you're offering a solution, is it because they've asked you for a solution, or are you afraid of, how they're feeling about, needing support, and so you feel like you need to fix, or whatever it is? There's a million reasons why we talk. But I think that's a great question, and I'm going to definitely ask. That'll be my mantra for the day, and make sure that I'm in alignment. So thank you, Jerod, for that. That question from that healing symposium in Tulsa, and whoever shared that with you.
Yeah, it was there were some therapists that worked with ketamine there. There were a couple facilitators there, and they all were cut from a similar cloth, but they all kind of approached this work differently. And I think that's important. If if safety and integrity is your bedrock, and I think it's important to have completely different types of facilitators and therapists in this type of healing space, because, you
Mm-hmm.
know, while I might resonate with someone else might have a deep aversion to how I operate, and that I swear sometimes, and that I talk about kidnapping people and putting them in a trunk. That's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not trying to be around this monster of a human, like, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is okay to not want to work with everybody in this space, because your vibration will bring in the right people if you're working with alignment, authenticity, and safety. You know, I had one guy, I traveled to Buffalo and we put on a men's retreat, and one of the individuals had didn't really have much of an experience. And I reached out to him. I said, "Hey man, I'm doing a men's retreat in Tulsa. If you want to come back and do it again." And he was like, "Hey man, just to be clear, like, I don't think you and the other facilitator, you're not my people. Like, you're not my people." And of course, when I first read that, it was like, "What do you mean I'm not your people?" But then,
I'm
like,
everybody's people, man. I'm perfect.
you know, yeah. So, but like, I was able to recognize that, take a deep breath, and be like, "Well, thank you for your honesty. Like, I appreciate that. Like, I wish you nothing but the best, blessings and love, and I hope you find the traction that you need to move forward on your healing journey."
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, but when it comes to healing, like, some people are almost forced to work with the person that they might not feel totally aligned with at first, because they're desperate.
Mm-hmm.
And I
That's
think
right.
that is a part of it happens how it's supposed to, right? When you're desperate
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know that there's a plethora of different types of facilitators out there with different walks of life and different trauma informed training and different modalities and different meds. All you know is that you're not well and that you want help, and you come across this person that maybe somebody referred you to, and you don't know how to tap into your gut or your
Mm-hmm.
intuition and be like, hmm,
Hmm.
this isn't a full body yes for me.
Mm-hmm.
But you do it. And as long as they're in alignment and they're doing safe practices, like, it's going to teach that individual a lot about what their people are,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Oh,
For sure.
definitely. Yeah, it takes a lot of self-awareness and acceptance to accept that you're not, everyone's God's gift to everybody. Maybe just a lot of people,
Yeah.
Jerod, but not everybody. And to recognize we all have our different paths, that we all, and sometimes you do need, and it's not it's happened the way it's supposed to happen, but sometimes you do have to experience not ideal so you can move toward ideal. It is true. So there's like, I can see all the sides of it. But I do think that's missing in the space. When you have people, it's important to realize people are vulnerable, desperate, seeking help, and they're going to take the first help they can get. And it takes someone else who has a little more space to help them find what is more ideal for them, what is a better fit, what is going to lead to better outcomes. And that's a really good point.
And those landscapes can change too. you know,
Landscapes
who you
change.
feel called to work with, or,
That's right.
the types of work that you're doing, that can change, and it should change, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. If you're doing the same healing modalities for 3 years straight and you're doing the same thing, like, what do you do? Like, are you
Something's not
changing? Are
changing,
you
yes.
right? Like, you're not, you're still doing the same things. And, like, depending on who you talk to in this space, that is, like, you want to evolve, you want to change, you want to change the landscape of your healing journey. Different people, different things, different modalities. That's real.
That's right. All paths are traps. All paths are traps. Another little bit of wisdom that always rumbles around my head. A path can get you somewhere, and you can then step off the path and go to some new landscape. or it can be a trap and you can keep wandering that same path again and again. Another way of putting it is you can get addicted to the medicine. You know, something can be medicine or it can be a drug. It really depends on how you're using it and your intention and the setting. And you can get addicted to the path. You can get addicted to the medicine and never get off of it. 100%. It's really good. Man, I would very, very well feel comfortable recommending anyone to seek your guidance, to seek that space. And risingridge.com, is that right? Is that where people can find you at?
risingridge.org is our website. Yep, risingridge.org.
That's wonderful. I hope we can collaborate at some point. I think this work is so important. I would love to learn from you, learn with you. I hope all of us can. And man, you definitely have to come back on the podcast. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, there's definitely got to be an episode 2 because
I have hours.
We're ending it and we're not nearly done talking. So
we didn't even talk about aliens. We haven't
even scraped the surface.
We haven't even left Earth yet. What are we even doing? Man, but I will also be reflecting on weight. That's actually in my coach's toolkit. I have when I coach with Helping the Herd, I have that one up on my list that I always go up and try to teach weight. It's so good, and I'm gonna tie that with value-driven behavior. I haven't heard that, and that really resonated with me. I think it's the same thing. Why am I talking? And then I want to have value-driven speech and action, behavior. So why am I doing anything? Why am I talking?
Yeah.
Why am I doing anything in the world? Yeah, right. I get it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jerod. Love you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Love you, brother.
Thanks so much.
Blessings and love, gentlemen.
Blessings.
This has been the Do You Feel Heard podcast. If you're interested in resources that will help you move through conflict, you can go to doyoufeelheard.com, where we have tools for individuals and couples.